Hi, I'm Konstantin Baum, Master of Wine, and today I want to focus on a fairly new, but also really old wine type, orange wine. These wines have caused quite a bit of controversy over the last few years, and they've changed the wine world forever. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about orange wine, and I'm going to taste a handful of interesting examples that Leon picked for me. Let's get orange. Orange wine is not a rosé or wine made from oranges. It also has nothing to do with the former president, the clockwork, or the agent. While we're at it, it is made by picking healthy white grapes, crushing them, and then leaving the juice in contact with the skins during fermentation. But let me show you what I'm talking about. White wine is usually made by separating the solids from the grapes and the juice. So you're just squeezing out those juicy berries. Use the juice only and discard the rest. Orange wine, however, is treated like a red wine, which means you're crushing the berries and then you're leaving the skins in contact with the juice during fermentation. So it's not a red, white, or rosé wine. The latter would be made from red grapes. Instead, it's its own category. Orange. There's more to orange wine than just the color. The skins of white grape varieties also contain tannins, acid, and flavors. And by leaving the skins in contact with the juice during fermentation, those compounds change the wine depending on the grape variety. Orange wines smell more opulent and intense, and they generally have more tannins and a richer mouthfeel. Orange wine has become more popular over the last few years, and it might seem like this is a new invention, but it's actually likely that this is the way white wine was made in the very beginning. The country that is most closely associated with the production of orange wine, because it has been produced there for a long time, is Georgia. Georgia is also the country with the longest track record when it comes to wine production, dating back to 6000 BC. While we do not know exactly how they made wine back then, it's generally assumed that production methods haven't changed much since then. To this day, white grape varieties are fermented on the skins in amphoras under the ground. An important reason why it's likely that they made orange wine in the very beginning is that it's so much easier to throw grapes into a fermentation vessel and let the yeast do their work instead of pressing the grapes first and then fermenting the juice because, well, you need a press to begin with. On top of that, by extracting tannins from the skin, you get the additional benefit of making the wine more stable, which must have been a huge plus during times when cellar hygiene was pretty low and sulfur wasn't widely available. The greater stability of orange wines is also one of the reasons why they are often associated with natural wines. The natural wine movement has adopted this hands-off approach to winemaking, as it is easier to make good orange wine without or with low levels of SO2. However, anyone can make orange wine, and today there are small natural wine producers, and at the same time there are huge cooperatives producing orange wine. Leon has prepared some interesting orange wines for me, so let the tasting begin. So the first one is the 2018 Vazzi-Zubani Estate Rkatsiteli Qvevri from Georgia. I recently traveled to Georgia and I was pretty impressed by the wines and the winemaking culture over there. So it's definitely a place worth looking at, and it's certainly one of the leading countries when it comes to orange wine. So the Qvevris are those ancient clay amphoras that have been used there for a long time, and they can be thousands of liters big. They are buried under the ground, and well, you basically just drop the grapes in there and let them ferment while the amphora is more or less sealed. So the wine fermented for 4 to 5 months in Qvevris, and it wasn't really touched during that time, so they didn't do any punch downs or anything like that. They just let the wine do its thing. Ooh, you can see straight away that this is not your ordinary white wine. This kind of looks like Campari in color, so it's almost reddish in hue. It's quite deep, intense. They also call it amber wine. So this looks really amber colored. Quite beautiful. This is really fascinating. I mean, apart from the color, its flavor is also very different. It smells of soy sauce. It smells of stock cube, like a bouillon cube. So it's really like umami in flavor, if that's even possible. There's also some fruit flavor coming through. Obviously, you got some notes of raisins, a little pruny flavor coming through as well. So it's not just these wild meaty flavors, but there's quite a lot of it. On the palate, the wine is super intense, really grippy, so the tannins are really coming through here. It's biting my tongue and my gums, but in a nice way. So this is a beautiful wine, quite well balanced, really interesting. And it's not necessarily a wine that you should drink on its own, but you can pair this with lots of different dishes. So the great thing with orange wine is that you can either go the meat route, so you can definitely serve poultry here. You can also put some pork on the table, but you can also go like fried fish, pike perch or something like this. So there's a huge diversity of opportunities here. This is just a wine that, well, that's so complex and so interesting, so multi-layered that it can deal with lots of different dishes. So this wine retails for $25, so it's not a cheap wine, but I think it's definitely worth its price. I'm going to rate this 90 points. I think it's a really good orange wine. The next wine is the 2019 Matthiasson Ribolla Gialla from Napa Valley, and it retails for $60. Ribolla Gialla is originally from the northeast of Italy, and Matthiasson bought some Ribolla Gialla wines from Josko Gravner, who is like a superstar in the natural wine movement and also one of the leading figures when it comes to orange wine. The wine was fermented on the skins and the stems using native yeast in open top fermenters. He did some punch downs and the wine was pressed off after 2 weeks and then matured for 18 months in neutral barrels. The wine was also not filtrated or fined, and only a small amount of SO2 was added in the end. So it's pretty close to a natural wine, I guess, but different to the previous wine. So not made in an amphora and, well, with a little bit more control over fermentation. So you can see that the wine is more golden in color. It's not as dark and not as amber as the previous wine. And, well, it looks more orange, I guess. It also tastes very different to the previous wine. It's more fruity. There's more flavors of lemon. You also got like ripe apple, but there's also a nuttiness there. So it's quite complex, really appealing. I think this is more like intermediate, so it's not as difficult to understand as the previous wine. This is something that a normal wine drinker might appreciate as well. On the palate, it's also less grippy, so you have less tannins, and it's quite fresh and vibrant. It's really mellow. It's a beautiful wine. It's quite harmonious and still interesting, even though it's not as crazy as the wine before. And I do like this. I'm going to rate this 91 points. A really, expressive, beautiful orange wine. A Ribolla Gialla from Napa Valley, which is kind of unexpected, I guess, and really, really well made. The next one is the 2019 Weingut Muster Gräfin from the Steiermark in Austria, and it retails for $40. Styria, or the Südsteiermark, really focuses on Sauvignon Blanc as a grape variety, and this is an orange wine made from Sauvignon Blanc. I'm really looking forward to tasting this because aromatic grape varieties in orange wines is usually an experience. This is a biodynamic winery, and they actually put the serving suggestion on the back label, and they're saying you should drink it at 14 degrees Celsius, which is a good idea. I think orange wine can be consumed at a higher temperature than normal white wines. It's kind of in the middle between white and red wine. The tannins tend to be more aggressive if the wine is really cold. So it's better to keep it at that kind of temperature, especially if you have a really good one. The wine was fermented on the skins for 2 to 4 weeks. It was then pressed off and then kept in small barrels, neutral barrels, for 22 months. The wine is quite orange in color. It's a little bit cloudy, which isn't atypical for orange wine. It smells of ripe pear, orange juice, and also a little bit smoky. There are also some slightly green notes coming through. It's very interesting. On the palate, it's quite fresh, vibrant. There are tannins, but they are not super pronounced. There's a little bit of grip, but it's quite delicate. and it has a pretty good finish, a long finish. So a very interesting wine. Sauvignon Blanc is one of those grape varieties that I find really easy to identify in a blind tasting, but Sauvignon Blanc made as an orange wine is much more difficult to identify. I would really struggle identifying this as a Sauvignon Blanc. The wines just taste and smell very different if you ferment them on the skin. I'm going to rate this 88 points. I think it's really solid. It's appealing, it's lively and fresh. It's a little, lighter in style, so you could definitely serve this more with lighter meats or poultry and fish rather than pork. But it's a versatile, really appealing aromatic wine. The next wine is the 2020 FIO Wines Yo-Yo from the Mosel in Germany, and I'm guessing it's a Riesling. In this project, Dirk von Nieport, the famous producer from Portugal, and Philip Kettern have established a winery in the Mosel, and they're making some pretty interesting wines there. So the grapes for these wines are sourced from Peaceport, and they grow on slaty soils. As far as I understand, only half of the wine is fermented on the skin, and the other half is fermented in stainless steel tanks, and then they blend that together. So let's taste it. It would make sense that not all of the wine was fermented on the skins, because out of all of the wines that I've tasted so far, this is kind of the most restrained, or maybe rather the more typical white wine in style. It's golden in color, so the color is quite deep, almost orange. The flavor profile is actually quite appley, lemony, so this feels quite a bit like Riesling in my opinion. And on the palate, the wine actually doesn't have a lot of grip. It's present, so you have some tannins there for sure, but you also have quite a lot of concentration. The acidity is a little bit more rounded or lower than what you would expect from a straight Riesling. Oftentimes those orange wines tend to be a little bit less acidic because of the potassium that is extracted from the skins that buffers the acidity on the palate. So the pH tends to be a little bit higher with orange wine compared to normal white wines, but that's really geeky stuff now. This is a really well-made wine, but it's not the most straightforward orange wine. It's a bit of a mix. I'm going to rate this 90 points. I think it's really well made, but it could be a little bit more outgoing. It could be a little bit more proud to be an orange wine. Why not go all the way? I mean, there's lots of good Riesling in this world, but not maybe as much good orange wine made from Riesling. The last one is the 2020 Foradori Pinot Grigio Fuoripista from Trentino in Italy, and it retails for $40. This is going to be interesting because Pinot Grigio, as the name indicates, is a grape variety with gray or reddish skins. So when you leave those skins in contact with the juice, you might actually get a really dark colored orange wine, or maybe more like a light colored red wine. So let's see what this one looks like in the glass. Foradori is one of the leading biodynamically working wineries in Italy. They are really well known. They're really pushing the boundaries, so they're doing good work. Fuoripista means off the track, so this is probably something that is a little bit different to normal wines, but let's see. So this wine was actually fermented in amphoras for 8 months. So it's, made more in the way that the first wine was made. But does it look like the first wine? Let's see. So this looks more like a rosé. It's copper colored, a little bit red. It looks like strawberry juice or something like that. It doesn't smell like strawberry juice. It smells like rhubarb, a little bit like cherries as well. And there's some herbaceousness coming through as well. On the palate, it's actually really well made. It's very balanced. There's some grip there, some freshness, some acidity, but also a lot of length and a lot of balance. This is quite beautiful. I mean, it's a really beautiful wine. I mean, The tannins are mellow. It's not very aggressively orange in that way, but it's really complex. I think it showcases the grape variety Pinot Gris really well, Pinot Grigio, and this is good stuff. So I'm going to rate this 93 points. I think it's the best wine in the tasting, even though it's maybe not, at least from the looks of it, not the most typical orange wine, but it's a really good wine. All right, I think this was a very interesting tasting for myself. Orange wines in the beginning, there were lots of really bad orange wines, and I think today winemakers understand better how to make a really good one. I think all of those wines were really good, really great selection selected by Leon. But my favorites, so I would say I actually have 3 favorites here. Like I said, all of them were really good. I think this was the wildest and most gritty and, well, thought-provoking wine out of the lineup. This one, the Matthiasson, I think was a beautiful orange wine, really perfectly rounded, really well made. But yeah, like I already said, the Foradori, in my opinion, was the best one out of the bunch. All of these wines, well, offer so much to someone who wants to match wines with dishes or who wants to taste something different, and I can recommend them all. So thank you for watching. If you liked this video, then please like it down here. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. My question of the day has to be, what is your opinion on orange wines? Do you like them? What are your favorites? Do you not like them? Please let me know down below. I hope I see you guys again soon. Until then, stay thirsty.